All right, so section 4 deals with multiplying and dividing integers. And to be honest with you, this is going to be very, very simple. The only thing you got to worry about in this entire section is just the signs. The hard part is going to be the actual multiplication or division, okay? So to help you, I'm going to create a little table. So we have our first integer, we have our second integer, and then you're going to have your result. Okay? So just give me a second and let me build this table for us here. That last line I don't like. There you go. That one's a little bit better. And I'm going to go ahead and just use the red marker here. So here we go. When your first integer is positive, your second integer is positive, your result's going to be positive. And this applies to both multiplying and dividing. Okay? Now, for the second row, if your first integer is positive and your second integer is negative, the result will be negative. In the third row, if your first integer is negative and your second integer is positive, your result will be negative. And lastly, if your first integer is negative and your second integer is negative, your result will be positive. And like I said, this applies to both multiplying and dividing. So throughout the video, you're going to hear me say, okay, here's the easy part, and then here's the hard part. Okay? So as long as you got that chart written down, we can just go ahead and start doing examples. So for the first one, how about we do 3 times negative 5? Easy part. A positive times a negative is a negative. Hard part, 3 times 5, you got to know, is 15. Next example. How about negative 10 times negative 22? Okay? Well, for this, you got a negative times a negative, so I know the answer is positive. I know that answer is going to be positive. If you want to put a plus there, that's okay, but normally we just omit it. If we just write the number, it's going to be positive. The answer here, or the hard part here, is going to be 10 times 22. Now, if you remember, if you multiply by a factor of 10, you just add the same number of zeros. So this is going to be 220. Okay? Let's try a couple more here. So for this, let's do negative 6 times positive 9. Easy part. A negative times a positive is a negative. Hard part. 6 times 9, you got to know, is 54. All right, and let's do one more. How about 1 times 8? Well, a positive times a positive is still a positive, and 1 times 8 is going to be 8. Okay, so I did 4 examples of multiplication. I think it's only right if I do a couple examples using division. And I will make these a little bit more difficult, okay? So how about negative 27 divided by positive 3? So the easy part, excuse me, a negative divided by positive is going to be negative. The hard part is 27 divided by 3 is going to be 9. Okay? Now, let's get a little bit more difficult. How about negative 115 divided by negative 5? Okay? So the easy part, a negative divided by a negative is going to be a positive. So I know the answer is positive. However, 115 divided by 5, I can't do that in my head. So what I'm going to do is just write it out. Long division. 5 goes into 11 twice. That's going to be 11 minus 10 is 1. We're going to drop down to 5. 5 goes into 15 3 times with a remainder of 0. So negative 115 divided by negative 5 is going to be a positive 23. So the hard part about this was just doing the division. The signs, honestly, are the easy part. All right? Now, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to look at 2 very special cases. All right? These are very special. And it has to deal with our exponents. So if you want, what I'd like you to do, actually let's do a 5. So if you want, what I want you to do is go ahead and answer these 2 questions. pause the video, answer 2 questions, and then unpause it to see what I get. So for the first problem here, for the quantity negative 5 to the second power, all right, I get positive 25. And for the second one, we also read that as the quantity of 5 to the second power, and that's going to be 25. So that's pretty standard. But in red, I'm going to ask you this question. So go ahead, pause the video, write down your answer, and then compare it. So with this result here, okay, this is read negative 5 to the second power. Now, all the way back here, remember, that was the quantity of negative 5 to the second power. However, in this example, I have negative 5 to the second power. And what we got to remember here is this. First, I'll give you the answer. The answer is negative 25. Now let's understand why, okay? That negative 5 to the second power is really negative 1 times 5 to the second power. In other words, only the 5 has the exponent. Okay? Now, if you remember from your order of operations, let me write out the word exponent nicer. Now, if you remember from your order of operations, exponents take precedence over multiplication. So, you need to evaluate 5 to the second power first. And 5 to the second power is 25. And then you have to multiply negative 1 times positive 25. And that's how I got the answer, negative 25. So I'm going to do another problem just like this, and I'm going to show you the difference, okay? So how about we do... Oh, that's a real thick marker. Hold on. There we go. So how about we do negative 3, or the quantity of negative 3 to the second power, and then let's compare that with just negative 3 to the second power. And listen to how I'm saying them. They're different. The quantity of negative 3 to the second power is the first. Negative 3 to the second power is the second. So recall from exponents that whenever you have an exponent, you need to rewrite the base that many times. Now, because I have parentheses around the negative 3, I need to write negative 3 times negative 3 in parentheses. A negative times a negative is a positive, and 3 times 3 is 9. Okay? For this second example, though, that is negative 1 times 3 to the second. Okay? Which means we need to evaluate the exponent first. So 3 to the second power is going to be 9. And now you can say negative 1 times 9 is negative 9. Okay? So make sure you see those differences. Now, just to end this lecture, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to just simplify a bunch of problems using the order of operations. Okay? So here's our first one. So remember the order of operations, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, and division are in the same level. Therefore, they're equally important. It's just you do them from left to right in the order they appear, and the same for addition and subtraction. So we have parentheses, so we need to do that first. So I'm going to rewrite everything exactly how it looks, except 9 minus 12 is going to be negative 3. Now I read it again. And all I got to do is just follow my order of operations. There's no exponents anymore, or there's no exponents to begin with, which is great. So if I read this, 12 minus 3 times negative 3. So I look at the sign in front of each number. A negative times a negative is a positive. 3 times 3 is 9. And then lastly, 12 plus 9 is going to be 21. Okay? So My only word of advice here is to just take your time. Don't rush. So don't rush. Sometimes the problem with doing math is, and I got to be honest with you, and you might sit there and go, I don't think so, but it's true. We're all very smart individuals. Every single one of you are extremely bright. However, our minds move so fast, and the key to mathematics is understanding the definition and slowing down. If we could do those two things, the math anxiety is minimized, your mistakes are minimized, and then you really start to understand what's happening. So just slow yourself down. Let's do another example here. So in this example, we have 8 times negative 9 divided by the quantity negative 2 to the third power. So once again, I'm going to write my order of operations. So I start with parentheses. Now, I definitely see parentheses in two locations. However, there's no math involved. There's only a number inside. So my parentheses are done. Second, exponents. Well, I definitely see exponents, and it's right here. Now, be careful. That is the quantity of negative 2 raised to the third power, which means you got to write this out. So because the negative is inside of the parentheses, I'm going to write negative 2 3 times, and I'm just going to multiply. So off to the right here, I went ahead and wrote that. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. And then positive 4 times negative 2 is going to be negative 8. So I'm going to rewrite everything. And the quantity of negative 2 to the third power turns out to be negative 8. Okay? So now my exponents are done. Now I'm going to do multiplication and division from left to right in the order in which they appear. So I am forced to do these two first. So 8 times negative 9 is going to be negative 72. And finally, negative 72 divided by negative 8. Well, the easy part, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. 72 divided by 8 is 9. And that's the hard part. You got to know that. Okay? So we're going to do one more, and then we'll call it a day. All right, so here's our last one. Excuse me. So write the order of operations. Start with parentheses. Well, if you look here on the right-hand side, both of these are in parentheses, but they're only one number in each, so there's nothing I can do there. Next, we do exponents. Well, I don't see any, so that's okay. That's great. But now we do multiplication, division from left to right in the order which they appear. So I'm forced to do this first. So the easy part, a negative divided by a positive is a negative. 27 divided by 3 is 9. And I'm going to rewrite everything exactly how it looks because I am old school, and that's how I do it. Now, I'm moving too fast. Now let's read it. Negative 9 plus negative 5 times negative 6. So because you said times, we have to do multiplication right here. So we're going to get negative 9 plus a negative times a negative is a positive. 5 times 6 is 30. So it's positive 30. So now that's done. And finally, negative 9 plus 30. Well, the signs are opposite, and I'm adding or subtracting here. So since the signs are opposite, find the absolute value of each. 30 is definitely larger, and it's going to be positive. So I know that answer that goes in that circle is going to be positive as well. So I just need to do 30 minus 9, which is going to be 21. So the answer is positive 21. So I hope this helped. And the next section is going to be the last section, which deals with solving, which is pretty standard. So good luck, and look out for that next video. Bye.